In the shadow of the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, where electric lights first dazzled millions and the Ferris wheel touched the sky, a different kind of architectural marvel rose on the corner of 63rd and Wallace Streets. Its builder, a charming pharmacist named H.H.Holmes, called it a hotel. The neighbors called it peculiar. History would know it as the Murder Castle, a building designed not to shelter life, but to extinguish it. The structure loomed 3 stories high, a maze of oddly angled corridors and windowless rooms, its foundation deep enough to hide countless secrets. But before we descend into its dark hallways, we must understand the man who built it and the glittering, corrupted city that allowed him to flourish. Herman Webster Mudgett was born in 1861 in Gilmanton, New Hampshire, to a devout Methodist family. A bright child with an unsettling fascination with surgery and death, young Herman would dissect small animals, displaying a clinical detachment that troubled those who noticed. This childhood interest would evolve into something far more sinister as he learned to wear charm like a second skin, masking the void that lay beneath. After graduating from medical school at the University of Michigan, where he devised his first insurance scam by using cadavers to fake deaths, Mudgett reinvented himself as Dr. Henry Howard Holmes. Chicago in the late 1880s proved the perfect hunting ground for a man of his particular appetites. The city was booming, preparing for the world's Columbian Exposition. Thousands poured in, seeking opportunity, and just as many disappeared without trace. Who would notice a few more missing persons in this churning sea of humanity? Holmes acquired a drugstore in the Inglewood neighborhood through manipulation of its owner, a dying widow. Soon after, he began purchasing adjacent lots, envisioning a building that would become his masterwork of murder. The construction process was as bizarre as the man himself. Holmes hired and fired workers constantly, ensuring no single person understood the complete design. He ordered doors that opened to brick walls, staircases that led nowhere, and soundproof rooms with gas lines that could be controlled from a distance. The castle, as it came to be known, was a 3-story funhouse mirror of Victorian architecture. The first floor housed Holmes's pharmacy and various shops, presenting a respectable face to the world. But above and below lurked something altogether different. Secret passages allowed Holmes to move unseen between rooms. Chutes led to the basement, where acid vats and a crematorium waited. Some rooms were sealed entirely, transformed into gas chambers with peepholes for Holmes to observe his victims' final moments. As the 1893 World's Fair approached, Holmes's castle filled with guests, particularly young women arriving alone in the city. He charmed them with his blue eyes and refined manners, offering safe harbor in a city growing more dangerous by the day. Many were his employees, others his lovers, some his wives. Holmes maintained several bigamous marriages simultaneously. All eventually disappeared. Consider the cruel efficiency of his methods. Holmes would often propose marriage to his victims, requesting they take out life insurance policies naming him as beneficiary. Some he killed quickly in his gas chambers. Others he locked in soundproof rooms until starvation or madness took them. The basement held medieval implements of torture alongside modern medical equipment, suggesting a man who bridged the gap between ancient brutality and clinical precision. Among his confirmed victims was Julia Connor, who worked in his pharmacy along with her daughter Pearl. Both disappeared after Holmes convinced Julia to perform a fatal abortion. Benjamin Pitezel, Holmes's longtime associate in various scams, met his end in an insurance fraud scheme gone wrong. Most horrifically, Holmes then convinced Pitezel's widow to let him travel with 3 of her children, all of whom he murdered in different cities while sending fake letters to their mother about their wonderful adventures. The castle itself seemed to absorb the evil of its creator. Guests reported strange sounds in the night, scraping, crying, the hiss of gas. Some complained of dizziness and odd smells. Others simply vanished, their belongings left behind in rooms that would later be found to have scratch marks on the walls and bloodstains in the floorboards. When investigators finally entered the building in 1894, they discovered a house of horrors that defied imagination. Hidden rooms contained dissection tables stained with blood. Long chutes led to the basement's acid vats and lime pits. A human-sized oven bore evidence of frequent use. In some rooms, gas pipes were disguised as conventional plumbing. The walls held hidden observation panels through which Holmes could watch his victims' terror. The exact number of Holmes's victims remains unknown. He confessed to 27 murders, though some estimate the true count might be closer to 200. The castle's design suggested a man who planned to kill on an industrial scale, taking advantage of Chicago's rapid growth and the World's Fair to provide an endless supply of victims. What creates such a monster? Holmes displayed classic traits of psychopathy, superficial charm, pathological lying, lack of empathy, but combined them with architectural vision and methodical planning rarely seen in serial killers. He was not simply opportunistic, he created an entire infrastructure for murder, a building designed to facilitate death in dozens of ways. His capture came not through detection of his murders, but through the investigation of his insurance frauds. Detective Frank Geyer, following the trail of the missing Pittersell children, uncovered Holmes's cross-country path of destruction. The detective's dogged pursuit would eventually lead to Holmes's arrest in Boston in 1894. During his trial, Holmes remained eerily composed, speaking eloquently in his own defense. He appeared more concerned with his public image than his fate, writing a confession that mixed truth with obvious lies. Was this the final performance of a consummate conman, or did Holmes truly believe he could charm his way out of justice as he had so many times before? The murder castle did not long survive its creator. Shortly after Holmes's execution in 1896, the building was mysteriously damaged by fire. It served various purposes over the years before being demolished in 1938. Today, a post office stands on the site, though visitors sometimes report unusual cold spots and inexplicable feelings of dread. Holmes's legacy extends beyond his crimes. He represented something new in the annals of murder, the modern serial killer who combines technological sophistication with psychological manipulation. His castle was more than a murder weapon. It was an expression of its creator's twisted genius, a physical manifestation of evil architected with terrible purpose. In the end, Holmes remains an enigma, a man who bridged America's rural past and industrial future, combining old-world charm with modern efficiency in the service of death. His murder castle stood as a dark mirror to the white city of the World's Fair, reminding us that behind every dream of progress lurks the potential for nightmare.